Welcome back to 17 News at Noon podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Noon.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for 17 News at Noon. I'm Nicole Gitske. We begin with a grim milestone reached in the fight against coronavirus. COVID-19 deaths have surpassed 1,000 today on the anniversary of health officials confirming the first local case of COVID-19. Now, Kern's first COVID-19 death was announced on March 29, 2020. 48-year-old Susie Garcia died from COVID-19 a couple days after receiving the positive diagnosis. She died at Adventist Health Delano Regional Medical Center. Since then, more than 1,000 people in Kern County had a similar fate. Death data from the county shows more than 2/3 of deaths are people 65 years or older. The top underlying condition are hypertension, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. About 1 in 3 people who died from coronavirus had hypertension, while another third had diabetes. And today marks 1 year since COVID-19 was confirmed in Kern County. And 1 year, so much has happened this year. It has been historical, gut-wrenching, and exhausting. Looking back, in mid-March of last year, 126,000 people around the world were infected with the virus. Now, here in the U.S., the virus was on the move. Governor Newsom announced statewide recommendations and executive orders that impacted all counties, including Kern. Then the news came exactly a year ago. Health officials confirmed coronavirus was in Kern County. Later that week, Governor Newsom announced a stay-at-home order. The next day, an emergency order was issued in Bakersfield. Less than 2 weeks later, Kern County lost its first resident to the novel virus. 1 month after the first case was confirmed in Kern County, 3 people had lost their lives. By Halloween, cases started to rise once again. It was becoming the beginning of the biggest and deadliest surge. Cases, hospitalizations, and deaths spiked after Thanksgiving. Now, our worst day was on December 9th, 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. December and January would become the deadliest months of the pandemic. More than 400 people died as a result just from the holidays. And now to the latest numbers here in Kern County. Kern Public Health reporting 17 new deaths today. As mentioned, our death toll has surpassed 1,000 with the most recent update. It's likely that number is higher as health officials work to confirm new deaths. Public Health also reporting 124 new cases today. State data shows 108 people are in the hospital, 26 people are still in the ICU. We're seeing an average of about 90 people getting sick every day. That's a significant decrease from 2 months ago when our average was more than 1,000 cases per day. And we often focus on those who have either tested positive for COVID-19 or those who have lost their lives to it. But what about the people in the hospital, especially the people spending weeks or even months confined to hospital beds? Coming up tonight, I'll share the story of 52-year-old Julie DePietro, a local mom and nurse who wound up in the ICU the day after Christmas and has been there ever since. A COVID long hauler whose fight is far from over. It's all happening tonight on 17 News at 5. Well, now to a new survey that shows how the pandemic has impacted the mental health of teens. Nearly 1,000 parents of teens were polled, and 46% said their child has shown signs of a new or worsening mental health condition since the start of the pandemic. Parents of girls were more likely to report new or worsening signs of depression or anxiety compared to parents of boys. 3 in 4 parents reported a negative impact on their teen's connection to friends, while 1 in 7 said their teen has withdrawn from the family since the start of the pandemic. And joining us once again to help us understand this spike in mental health is Jessica Meyers, an integrative health and herbal expert. Jessica, thank you for joining us this morning. Can you tell us what is contributing to these skyrocketing numbers?
Hi, Nicole. You know, I really feel for our teenagers in this time. It has been such a tough year. Teens that depend heavily on their peers for support in normal times. They spend all day in school together, participate in sports together, and then spend all their social time together. So for them to experience a huge burden of worry about what might happen if they get sick, and then to be struggling with the transition to Zoom school and a loss of social activities, and on top of that, have very limited in-person contact with their peers to process all of that. I'm not surprised at all that our teens are struggling. Even adults are struggling with the transition to a virtual social life, and as social media platforms that facilitate social interaction tend to be more of a highlight reel of a person's life than a a realistic reflection of the true highs and lows, it can give us a kind of a skewed outlook. But the thing is, it's so easy to forget that we're just looking at the highlights, and adults as well as teens really start to feel isolated in their own struggles.
Now, Jessica, what can teens and their families do to support mental health and help them happily and confidently enjoy the now loosening restrictions out there?
Well, I really do think that it needs to be a family approach. I have 3 quick tips that the family can apply in order to help support the teens. At the very, very top of the list is going to be limiting screen time. Under normal, non-pandemic circumstances, studies show that the more recreational screen time that teens get, the worse their mental health. Add in a pandemic, and that's amplified.
I think it's just so important to remember with mental health, especially in teens right now, that it's important to just make sure that they have someone to talk to and make sure that they feel connected to the world. They can feel so disconnected during these times. It's so important to make sure you check in on them. And if you want any tips on how to handle mental health during the COVID pandemic, Jessica Meyers has a website. That's jessicameyers.com. You can head there and find out tips and other suggestions to deal with those mental health problems. Now to education news. Doc Irvin, a superintendent of the Bakersfield City School District, is leaving at the end of June. Now, in a news release sent to 17 News, the district says Irvin has accepted the position of superintendent of the San Bernardino City Unified School District. Irvin joined BCSD as superintendent in 2016 and has worked in education for 27 years. His last day on the job is June 30th. No replacement has been named. And Bakersfield City School District is offering 2 academias this summer to help students recovering from learning losses due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, they will focus on the social and emotional development of students and providing literacy, mathematics, and STEAM instruction. Music and art classes are also included. The first session will be held June 14th to July 2nd. The second, July 12th to July 30th, according to the district. The district is hoping parents will also participate. The BCSD Parent Centers will offer Zumba classes as well as classes on technology and how to support children academically. And while schools rushed to adapt to distance learning, youth athletics didn't have the same option, leaving thousands of youth athletes on the sidelines. Now, coming up today on 17 News at 5, Sports Director Taylor Schaub looks back at a year without sports. Take a look.
They've lost that thing that gets them up every morning.
I just didn't really know what to do. This year was supposed to be like my best year,
I almost fell apart, It was a horrible feeling.
Out of all the events that had been canceled this senior year, that was the one that hurt the most.
You always say you hate school, you don't want to be at school, but then when the reality hits that you don't get to go to school anymore.
All of a sudden it's just taken out of your hands and you have absolutely no say. It's a terrible feeling. It's just gut-wrenching.
Reactions from local high school athletes as their seasons were canceled, and the light at the end of the tunnel as some students get back onto the field. And earlier this month, some student athletes were cleared to return to the field for the first time since the pandemic shuttered youth sports. But last night we learned only home team fans will be allowed at Kern High School District's games. Now, Kern Public Health informed KHSD of the rule, saying it is only enforcing updated state guidelines. The rule means fans of the opposing team will not be allowed at games. Earlier this month, our COVID case rate dropped enough where sports can resume with modifications and, in some cases, testing requirements. We'll still ahead as the pandemic death toll in Kern continues to climb. Public Health is opening vaccine eligibility for a wider range of Kern residents. Now, groups now eligible include pregnant women and groups with health conditions like cancer, type 2 diabetes, and chronic kidney disease. It also covers people with developmental disabilities and those in certain work settings like public transit. Public health officials say it will be easy for those in high-risk groups to sign up for their shots. And a reminder, if you are in one of those eligible groups, you can sign up for a vaccine appointment using the state's website, myturn.ca.gov. You can also call 833-422-4255 to schedule an appointment. Meantime, vaccinations continue at the Kern County Fairgrounds, and if you need a ride to your vaccine appointment, the Department of Aging and Adult Services is here to help. They'll set you up with an appointment and a ride. To schedule, call 868-7090. Police are investigating a crash that kills one and sends 2 others to the hospital in southwest Bakersfield. According to Bakersfield Police, it happened early this morning on Panama Lane and Stein Road. BPD says when they arrived, they found a 2-car crash. A male driver of one of the cars was pronounced dead at the scene. The driver of the other vehicle and the passenger suffered minor injuries and were taken to the hospital. BPD has not yet said how the two cars crashed, but they believe speed was a factor. If you have any information, call BPD at 327-7111. And California Highway Patrol is reminding drivers to stay safe during St. Patrick's Day celebrations. Last year in California, 7 people were killed and 116 others were injured in crashes caused by driving under the influence on St. Patrick's Day. If you see an impaired driver on the road, you're urged to call 911. And the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control announced it will have agents out enforcing alcoholic beverage laws today to help make St. Patrick's Day celebrations as safe as possible. ABC wants to remind drivers that driving under the influence not only puts yourself and others at risk, but can result in fines of $15,000 or more in California. And the search continues for 2 missing California City boys 86 days after that search began. Orrin and Orson West reported missing from their adoptive parents' home in California City. Bakersfield police confirmed a search warrant was issued to the home of the adoptive grandparents in Bakersfield, but did not provide other details. While the boys were reported missing from California City, they have many ties to Bakersfield, which is why BPD has taken the lead on the case. The department hasn't announced charges against anyone in this case. Anyone with information on the missing boys is urged to contact the Kern Secret Witness Hotline at 322-4040. And the Bakersfield Police Department is asking for help in finding a 16-year-old boy who went missing Friday. Jonathan Miranda was last seen on the 1000 block of East Hosking Avenue. Police say he has no history of running away. He's described as being 6 feet tall, weighing 165 pounds, and was wearing a black leather jacket and black pants. Anyone with information regarding Jonathan Miranda's whereabouts is asked to contact Bakersfield Police at 327-7111. And in a year rocked by coronavirus, blood, plasma, and platelet donations are more important than ever. This week, Houchin Community Blood Drive is hoping to spread some good fortune to those who contribute. Now, today is St. Patrick's Day and the year anniversary of coronavirus hitting Kern County. Houchin is holding their Luck of the Draw promotion. Every donor will receive St. Patty's Day and pandemic-themed prizes, including gift cards, lottery tickets, hand sanitizer, and of course, toilet paper. To schedule an appointment, head to hcbb.com. Now to an update on the Noodle Bar in downtown Bakersfield. They will keep their doors open, but not for long. The Noodle Bar posted on Facebook that they will be open for indoor dining next week as Kern County enters the red tier. They also said their southwest location at the marketplace is slowly coming along. They will keep their downtown location open until April 17th. The Noodle Bar says they will offer specials during the 4-week countdown.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Noon.
The 17 News at Noon podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.